can Russia be beaten by Ukraine? He looked at me like, what a stupid question. He said, Russia's a massive country, and they win their country, and they win their life through wars. They fight wars. That's what they do. He said, China beats you with trade. Russia beats you with war.
Well, hello, that's me again. Today is August 12th, 2025, and it is extremely hot around Seattle here in Seattle. It's just heat wave. It's just absolutely devastating in the sense that I had to roll out my air conditioner and stick it into the window. And yeah, that helps obviously tremendously. But yeah, 90s is horrible, about 90. So yeah, and when you have the heat wave, you even at 11 o'clock in the evening, which is 2300s or 11 p.m., you get out there and it's still like 75. Yeah, it's not good. So, and yeah, the air conditioner works practically non-stop. However, the heat wave is not only in the obviously in Seattle area or elsewhere. I know my relatives from Europe, they say they're having a heat wave there. So it's all kind of, symbolic. And the name of the, actually this video is called Mosaic for a reason, and you know what Mosaic is. And this is the combination of all kinds of the fragments you have to put together. And as you saw yourself in the beginning, Mr. Trump, talking about Russia and Russia defeated Hitler, Soviet Union. Yeah. Obviously, it contradicts his earlier statement that, yeah, we also defeated Hitler, and the fact is, nobody is even close to us, and, well, somehow he has to really be consistent, but we know this is not what is this all about. And I will start, before I proceed to discuss the situation with this, and actually it's not just excitement, it's downright and a feverish pitch hysteria in the Western media and in Western political circles about this meeting between Trump and Putin. I want to start with we talk about Mosaic, isn't it? And this is about those fragments putting together to create some kind of the overall picture. And this picture is usually, as you might understand, is not black and white. It's not Manichaean. It is always, black, white, gray, yellow, blue, whatever. It's all kinds of the colors. And I will start with this. Hey, remember Syria? Remember this? Oh yeah, CIA was, opening, as Larry Johnson was said, opening the bottles of champagne, which they did, thinking that they know everything about everything. No, they don't. And here it is, the news just from yesterday. Just take a look at this. How can I say? If somebody forgot that Russians are still in Syria, nothing is happening with Russian bases there. And so we have now that Syrian government, they call it interim government or transitional government, doesn't matter. Syria asked Russia to resume military patrols in the south to deter Israel. The transitional government of Syria has asked Russia to resume military police patrols in the southern provinces of the country. This was reported by Kommersant, and the initiative is aimed at containing Israel, which occupied part of the southern regions of Syria in December 2024, under the pretext of creating a buffer zone. According to Damascus, the presence of Russian Federation will reduce the intensity of Israel operations. The return of Russian patrols to the northeast in the area of Kamishli after the visit of the Syrian foreign minister has already been recorded. Russia is able to prevent Israeli interference and that at the same time settle the dialogue between Damascus and Tel Aviv. You see? Yeah, I mean, how funny is this? Oh, everybody forgot that Khmeimim is in Syria. It's still operational and active operations when need be. They have still the Air Force, by the way, which is the day of the Air Force in Russia. Huge deal. And for those people who do not know, Russians now have Russian Air Force, not just aerospace forces, of which Air Force is the part of. No, we're talking about strictly Air Force. Those flying things, you know, that, guess what? 31 heroes of Russia since the start of the special military operation. Do you know how those people are? Well, obviously we don't know the names, and obviously we will not know names for a while until the terrorist regime in Kiev exists, and all kinds of the scumbags from CIA and MI6 try to, you know what, assassinate people. But that means what? That Russians actually scored many air-to-air victories. And usually ACE is defined as the 5 shut-down aircraft. If you take a look attentively, we'll discuss it on the how many Ukrainian airplanes or combat aircraft have been shut down, hundreds upon hundreds. Some of it, of course, air defense. But this is what is happening right now, and Syria is just the part, one of those fragments of the mosaic, which serious people in the know, in power, and with the analytical apparatus, they actually take it very seriously, and they consider all factors which come into, for example, things of such nature as, meeting between Trump and Vladimir Putin in Alaska. And I want to go to our dear friend Larry Johnson, the man with impeccable credentials and actually with a very good track record of actually talking about things. Here is what he writes about yesterday about Mr. Trump personally. And that basically confirms the issue of him being also a narcissist, which he is. And so here we have, look what Larry writes. And I subscribe to every single word of it because I know that's this to be true. Goodbye, romance. One important point, says Larry, that I neglected to address in my previous post on this issue is the fact that Putin and Trump have met at least 3 times previously, and those meetings were friendly and relaxed. I've spoken to a couple of people who have had private meetings with Trump, and according to them, Trump is a completely different person in a private settings. He is terribly insecure and he wants desperately to be liked. Accordingly, he does not engage in the bullying and insults that are part of his public persona. This may be one reason that Vladimir Putin wants to talk to Donald Trump face to face. And what can I say? Larry nails the basically, completely. I mean, that's what it is. And yes, this confirms merely the narcissistic nature of Trump, and he wants to look great. He wants to look, like the guy who controls the universe. But how it is all related, apart from the personal thing, to meeting in Alaska? I'll tell you immediately that Ukraine will be just one of the topics and not even the most important one. And for people who do not understand how this mosaic forms itself into the whole picture, I am on the record. The fact is, I made my career on making those records and forecasting. I hate predictions, but my forecasting, as you already know, for those people who know my work for the last, second decade now, it's all about giving the context, it's all about giving the understanding of the surroundings, so to speak, of those fragments which constitute this mosaic of things, so to speak. And we already spoke about Syria, where Larry already gave you the understanding, which is correct, of Mr. Trump's personality, especially in the private meetings. And let me show you something which is the huge part of this puzzle, or mosaic again, which is, of course, you have to keep in mind. And this is not Martiana for Larry Johnson or Douglas McGregor or Daniel Davis or, anybody who is talking about it. This is the first deputy of the foreign minister of Russian Federation, Mr. Rybkov. So the guy with the, huge clearance, essentially. And here's what he says. And how to put it? just read it, so I will narrate it for you. That yesterday, Deputy Foreign Minister Sergei Ryabkov saw reason to believe that Moscow's statement about withdrawing from the moratorium on the deployment of the intermediate range and shorter range missiles led to a sobering effect in the West. We have quite reliable sources confirming that the desired result has been achieved. The effect is sobering and is taking place, he said in an interview with the TV channel Russia 1. And guess what? What was the sobering effect? Well, the sobering effect is what I continue to preach non-stop, again, for the second decade. In terms of the delivery systems, be them strategic or intermediate range, let alone short range systems, United States and NATO combined is not even in the same league. I mean, it's not even in the same galaxy. Russia not only outproduces it by the order of magnitude in terms of the high precision weapons, Russia outproduces NATO in the United States by the quality. And we are talking about, read my lips. You can, well, I wrote about it for second decade now. In terms of the high precision weapons and delivery systems, West, the combined West, headed by the United States, led by the United States, is lagging behind not by years. It lags behind by generations. And until people understand that, and until people understand that actually what Russia presents now, including the new upcoming systems, which we don't know yet, as Mr. Ryabkov stated himself, that I'm not allowed to tell you what it is. No, these are not Iskanders, which essentially the INF range, which is in 1,000 kilometers and things of this nature. It's Petrel, Burevestnik, which is this nuclear missile which can loiter for a few days before striking the targets, which nuclear powered. No. We're talking about something else altogether, which makes any kind of the military moves on the part of NATO headed by the United States absolutely useless. If they are just all of it is just basically fat targets. And that comes in handy. This piece, this huge fragment of this mosaic comes in handy when people have to understand a real combination of factors, the resultant force. And people have to understand what resultant force is, especially people who have a decent mathematical and physics background, who understand how resultant force is formed. You know, when you talk about, for example, about forces in the mechanics, and these are several vectors which of course add or subtract from each other, and you have the resultant vector, which is the resultant force. And resultant force is, read my lips, it is correlation of forces and means. It is so slanted not in favor of the combined West, headed by the United States, that essentially the negotiations or conversation with Vladimir Putin and Mr. Trump, it just came to a head. You just cannot procrastinate anymore, because obviously there are many other things which one needs to consider. And here is the issue. I want to point out to you to the article in Spectator. It's supposedly conservative magazine from United Kingdom, and at least they have some ideas. I'm not going to now be discussing the Arctic issue, which the way it presented by James Tidmarsh in this article, because it's very important topic. That's another part of the mosaic. That's another part of the puzzle, if you wish. And he talks about, could the Arctic be the key to ending the Ukraine war? Well, it's not going to be the key to ending the Ukraine war, because special military operation will continue, and we'll talk about it shortly. No, but Arctic will be a huge piece of another part of the mosaic which comes together, you know, to complete the picture. And so what he writes here, it's the conclusions which matter, and I will be making the separate thing probably about Arctic. And here what he says, when obviously Arctic will be, read my lips, will be discussed between Putin and Trump, is beyond the Western alliance. The reaction would be far warmer in terms of this meeting. Much of the global south sees the war in Ukraine less as a clash over borders and more as a drag on global trade and growth. For China, India, and Brazil, an end to the war, even entirely, that's how it's going to happen, on Russian terms, would be hailed as pragmatic diplomacy. Trump could present the Arctic bargain as proof of the US-Russia cooperation can solve global problems, which it will be. And so here is the conclusion which you have to keep, because it matters. The incentives for both Trump and Putin line up neatly. For Trump, it would be another Trump's deal in which commercial muscle underwrites a political settlement. Putin would keep his territorial gains and reopen the Arctic to US investment, and Ukraine would be left to make the best of a settlement it didn't shape. Britain and EU would be reduced to a role of bystanders. Well, not bystanders. We have to keep on. I have to keep repeating this. EU is lunch. They are not bystanders. EU is being consumed as I speak, and it will be consumed by the United States until it's completely dissolved itself. And you know what, Europe descends into what it always was: the bunch of the warring, territories, and going at each other's throats, and economically backward, because they probably will retain some degree of the competences in Airbus and commercial airspace, which we all want to, but this is what is expecting them. And if for people to understand how Europeans absolutely going bananas because they are excluded, nobody cares about them. And again, I don't know how many times I have to repeat that Europe is not the subject of international politics. It is an object, same as Ukraine. It's just that one rung above Ukraine. And here is probably the most revealing article from none other than The Times. My gosh, The Times, few days back. Look at this. And this is regarding the, obviously, J.D. Vance. J.D. Vance tells Europe to step up and take bigger role in Ukraine. European military weakness, yes, is laid bare as the U.S. tires of funding the war, and the coalition of the willing struggles to pull up the numbers to take on Putin. They are morons, obviously, in the Times, as you would expect from any Western establishment media, and they are basically cretins there, as I already stated. Average, the same actually goes for any journal in the world. It is a cretin, basically, ambitious bunch of the low lives. But they write that about that, the weakness, European military weakness. Well, it's not just European, it's American military weakness too. NATO is a paper tiger. The United States cannot fight real war. It never really could. But now, when we know the dynamics of the development, of rather the generation of the American military industrial complex, it is bare, it is laid bare. And so the Times continue, which is, remarkable. They admit reality now. It is clear, however, that even if it remains unwavering in its diplomatic stance, they talk about Europe lacks the strength to back Kyiv in negotiating favorable terms in a future peace agreement or enforcing a ceasefire. It never had, okay? The so-called coalition of the willing, a multinational force led by the UK and France intended to support Ukraine and potentially monitor a ceasefire, looks highly unlikely to meet Sir Keir Starmer, he is moron actually, original hopes of 64,000 troops on the ground. If Keir Starmer was basically advised by his, let's call it Imperial General Staff or whatever passes for the military in the United Kingdom, you have to immediately discard it as any kind of the professional military device. We saw United Kingdom, army and general staff, abilities, quote unquote, I'm being facetious, throughout the special military operation. They killed so many troops, it's unbelievable, in hundreds of thousands. And actually the Times continues to actually admit and putting up these numbers. Of course, once Russians saw those numbers, they laughed hysterically across whole Russia, and you cannot explain that people don't go there. You are not even in the same league. You're not even in the same league with the United States, while the United States military is not in the same league as Russia. And so look at this. Ground force, number of troops each nation would commit to Ukraine. Of course, they talk about it, and as you can see yourself, UK, oh my God, 5,000 to 10,000 troops out of 78,000, which are, of course, most of them are non-combatants. So yeah, they can barely put actually one brigade, maybe two brigades, which they can't. Then, of course, France, mighty France, 5,000 to 10,000, yeah, sure. And if once you look attentively at this, actually it's not just the ground force they would commit to Ukraine. It's the whole ground force they have, which actually can fight any kind of fight for, let's say, 12 to 13 hours before being completely annihilated. And as you can see yourself, mighty Poland and mighty Germany. So there you go. It doesn't actually require any more additional comments. And this tells you everything which I was trying to tell you for so many years. NATO is a paper tiger. Technologically, it's backward. Operationally, it's not, I don't even know how to describe it. It's just, Russians openly laugh and mock them. They openly mock American and British and German generals. Those, and I'm not talking about myself. I'm talking about people of high-level military position in Russian military. Forget about Soviet military. And so this is not to say that Russians don't make mistakes, but when you look at actually, this is another part. And now suddenly, this is part of this mosaic. Suddenly, those things are beginning to be admitted by, well, Europe, which is, as I already stated, paper tiger, and industrially, military industrially, it's not even in the same league with Russia. They are impotent. They can still start the war, make no mistake. But generally speaking, Russians are not going to be talking anymore like, oh yeah, we're going to just go and annihilate, which they can, you know, those troops of NATO troops if they do some stupid thing. No, the result will be very simple. Paris will cease to exist together with Berlin and London. And again, I mean, in a present form, because all basically their governments and military political elites will be annihilated, and Russians have all means to do it. And that's why this is Mr. Rybkov, what is Mr. Rybkov talking about. United States got the message. And evidently the talks, behind the curtain, so to speak, behind the stage, behind the closed doors talks between Russians and Americans were ongoing for a while. Whatever they were discussing, and yeah, the money and resources which are in the Arctic are immense. And there's only one country which can help to develop them. You guessed it correctly. Only Russia has the nuclear icebreaker fleet, without which any talk about Americans, you know, working the Arctic or Europeans doing something in the Arctic is pathetic. It's very, really, it's unrealistic wet dreams. And so they will need this. But then again, I sick and tired repeating the same thing over and over again, writing about it. I write it in my books that superpowers, they operate on a different wavelengths. They operate in a different dimension. And so, yeah, United States is still superpower. It is not as superpower as it used to present itself, which of course was grossly exaggerated capabilities, but at least it's nuclear superpower and it still retains a significant industrial economy. And yeah, Russians and Americans are bound to talk and found this modus vivendi. Otherwise, what we have is the Third World War. And the United States, if it wants to somehow persevere and survive as a unified nation, well, guess what? Arctic could be one piece of the mosaic. For example, like Russians offered the United States at some point of time, said, hey, we have the Krasnoyarsk Krai, gigantic, locality and the administrative unit in Russia, and obviously it stretches to Arctic. You can go and work with, if you want to, invest in $15 billion, for example, in Krasnoyarsk aluminum, processing plants and things of this nature. There were a lot of good projects going on which would enrich both Russia and the United States. So they will be talking about it. That's what is going to be part of this whole thing, let alone that, yeah, you cannot operate in Arctic without nuclear powered icebreaker fleet. You just can't, period. And so only Russia can do it. So, and then we go obviously to the issue of what is happening on the front line. And you people have to understand, as I repeat ad nauseam now, Russians do not want to govern whatever will be left of Ukraine. And so if you go and take a look at the tally, today's tally, as you can see yourself, we have, yeah, it's, going up in terms of the, I'm sorry to say it, yeah, annihilating of the armed forces of Ukraine. And when you look attentively at those maps, And we already know that. Listen, keep in mind, this is obviously old. Old in the sense that it's 3-4 days back. It doesn't reflect the present situation, not today, because it changed already. And especially it doesn't reflect the composition of the forces, of Russian forces, which continue to annihilate whatever is remaining of the armed forces of Ukraine. But look at this. So if we go take a look to our good friend Marat Khairulin and Colonel Mikhail Popov, here is from yesterday. So as you can see yourself, the Krasnoarmeysk, which is Pokrovsk, is by now is completely surrounded, and as you can see yourself on the Dobropolye, there is a huge actually red arrow, and this was happened most likely 3-4 days ago, not even on the 11th, because as I already stated, all this data is always obsolete by the time it is presented on the maps, and so but still we can go and take a look at probably what was maybe in reality by the 8th. As you can see yourself, they just absolute pummeling of the and surrounding of the whatever the armed forces of Ukraine. And yes, in terms of the Dobropolye, you can see yourself there is a breakthrough in the of Russian forces. This is how it looks like if you take a look at it attentively. Here, look at this. That's so, and it continues. I mean, the offensive merely accelerates, and it is the very, how to say it, obvious thing what is happening there. And evidently people in Pentagon, those remaining vestiges of American competence and expertise, somebody is beginning to tell Trump, and not only Trump, people in his administration, guys, it's over. It's over. It's just a matter of if Russians want to go and take this stupid, Kharkov, or they don't. Why? Why would you want to put millions of people who hate your guts on your balance? Of course not. Russia is not going to do this, not going to make this mistake anymore. I mean, Russians are, that's about time, and I'm happy to report to you that Russians are becoming egotistical people, as it's supposed to be. So yeah, it's not about restoring the empire, it's actually making those enclaves and those limitrophes, those fringe countries around Russia, to actually live on their own teak, so to speak. Russians are not gonna send a single ruble to them. If they want those countries, branching from now suddenly going bananas, Azerbaijan or Armenia or Kazakhstan or any other stan, if they want to, they can come to Russia and ask, let us buy your things. And they better pay money up front. And this is how it's happening right now. That's why Azerbaijan actually went bananas, but it's the whole other story. And I'm not going to be touching on it today. So, now if we take a look now at what is happening in American media, oh, poor babies. Yeah, those cretins from New York Times. They are now, foreign recruits killed in Ukraine as missile hits camps mass hall. Russia has repeatedly targeted soldiers assembled at military academies, barracks, and parade grounds. Absolutely, this is war. I'm sorry, guys. If those people in New York Times who do not understand what war is, none of them does. None of them, including those people who try to make their careers by the measure of being there, done that, which is putting themselves into those, full metal jackets, just getting all this, kinds of equipment and rushing to supposedly a line of the combat contact. It doesn't make you military professionals. You're just a bunch of the cretins and leeches who just, gather rumors and present them as facts. You won't understand the first thing about actually operations and strategy. None of them is capable, including most of the American generals who are not competent enough to even understand that. And so when you look attentively at all those events, including this funny thing, I don't know how true is this, here it is, Pokrovsk front collapse. Yeah, as you can see yourself, this is what's happening. Yeah, Pokrovsk, which is Krasnoarmeysk, is surrounded right now. This is, of course, Konstantinovka is also being surrounded. Then the Kramatorsk and all that. And so, suddenly, if it is J.D. Vance, I assume he is next president. Okay, sure. Pokrovsk front collapse, huh? Sounds like someone needs a dose of American strengths. I don't know what he's talking about. America cannot fight a real modern war, period. It's in a sense, actually, there are a number of the American military professionals who correctly stated if we would be actually involved with all our capabilities, against Russians, we probably wouldn't do much better than Ukrainian army, which is correct. That's what I'm trying to convey constantly. So I don't know what American strengths he is talking about, except for the obviously nuclear weapons. This is another huge piece of the mosaic, this fragment of the mosaic, which basically constitutes what is basically, the whole picture of what is happening. Believe me, there are very many more pieces, and this will be actually the body of the problems Russia and United States will be discussing. There will be most likely no breakthrough. If it happens, fine. If not, doesn't matter. Russians will continue with the special military operation and annihilation of the remnants of the sperm bank, which constituted the military danger for Russian Federation. Simple as that. And I've been on record for this for non-stop. So when people talk about Zelensky trying to get into Alaska and whatever, who cares? I know the vacancies in the Alaska hotels in Anchorage is a number of beautiful for janitors and housekeeping are completely filled. So Zelensky will have problems, just basically hanging around there. He may apply, maybe somebody will in some Hotel 6 will give him the position, but point is, they cry now that it will be done over head of Ukraine, of Kiev. They are not even Ukraine. This country is a virtual country. It doesn't exist in reality. It's a bunch of the, some kind of the mad population, which is reduced greatly, which run like crazy around, living in the alternative universe, most of them on the verge of some kind of the mental breakdown. Huge numbers, millions have PTSD. So, and they exist only because they, United States financed them primarily, then Europe did so. Now United States needs to crawl out. So, but in the end, that's what Mr. Rivkov constantly says, and Mr. Lavrov, and Russia's demands are the same. They never changed. So, and whatever will be discussed in Alaska will be discussed basically about those demands, in which Ukraine is just part of. So, and there is this caricature, which looks like, I have to admit, it kind of reflects the reality. So, and whatever happens in Alaska, we'll see. Again, I'm not here to sit and predict all kinds of things, but whatever might happen. But as I already stated, it will be discussion on a much broader front, much larger bunch of the issues apart from Ukraine. So, and again, United States and Russia, they either find modus vivendi, which I spoke for decades actually now, or there will be a World War III and everybody dies. And so in this case, it's good that they are talking, and we'll have to wait and see till Friday and see what's going to happen. And Putin is not going to humiliate Trump in person. And that is why Trump constantly wants to meet Putin in person. Vladimir Vladimirovich is a respectful man. He is the man of class and actually high culture. And that is why he will allow Trump to actually maneuver in his negotiations, so to speak, and then Russia will issue the response. And we'll see. Anyhow, this is what I wanted to tell you guys today. And as always, those who like what I do, please subscribe to my channel. And those who can afford, please support me on Patreon or buy me a coffee on too. I would really appreciate this. So have a nice rest of the week, guys. I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.